Greetings, everyone. My name is Dr. Erica Augustine, and I am a member of the classes of 2003 and 2014 from the School of Medicine and Dentistry, and I will be your MC for today's event. As a volunteer, I serve on the university's alumni board, which provides counsel to the Office of Alumni Relations and Constituent Engagement, and it helps develop programs and offer services that demonstrate the benefits of maintaining a relationship with the university long after graduation. You are all invited to today's event because you are also university volunteer leaders. So let me take a moment to thank you for all that you do to support this institution and its people. VIP leadership forums provide volunteers with an opportunity to hear from university leadership, alumni, and students on topics that focus on strategic priorities, campus life today, engagement, and philanthropy. These forums help to further your knowledge and expertise as a volunteer ambassador. Now, these virtual forums occur in between our biennial VIP Leadership Conference, which is a comprehensive weekend providing a variety of real-life skill sessions, university updates, faculty research, campus tours, and experiences. So save the date for the next one, June 7th to 9th in 2024. Today's forum focuses on the University of Rochester Medical Center. Our speaker today will reflect on leading a prestigious academic medical center and discuss plans for its future. Before we get started, I would like to address a couple of technology items. Today's program is in meeting format to allow the speakers and the audience to engage with each other. For the best viewing experience, we encourage you to go to the view button in the top right corner of your screen and select speaker view. Second, we will be answering questions after the presentation. Throughout the event, if you have a question, please submit it using the Q&A function located at the bottom of your screen. And we'll take time towards the end of the program to answer as many questions as possible. Now, I have the honor of introducing our speaker today, Dr. Mark Taubman, who is the Senior Vice President for Health Sciences, Chief Executive Officer of the University of Rochester Medical Center and UR Medicine, and Dean of the School of Medicine and Dentistry. Dr. Taubman received his BA in biochemistry from Columbia University and his MD from New York University School of Medicine. He subsequently completed a residency in internal medicine and a fellowship in cardiovascular diseases at the Brigham and Women's Hospital of Harvard Medical School. After 5 years on the faculty of the Brigham and Women's Hospital, he joined the Mount Sinai School of Medicine in New York, where he developed a well-funded research program in vascular biology. And that program focused on the regulation of pro-inflammatory and prothrombotic molecules in smooth muscle cells and in the arterial wall. In addition to his research program, Dr. Taubman was the director of the Cardiology Fellowship, the principal investigator of an NIH training grant in molecular cardiology, and the director of the Medical Scientist Training Program for MD-PhD candidates. In 2003, he moved to the University of Rochester as chief of the Division of Cardiology and director of the Cardiovascular Research Institute. In 2007, Dr. Taubman was appointed the Charles E. Dewey Professor and Chairman of the Department of Medicine. From 2007 to 2011, Dr. Taubman served as editor-in-chief of the AHA journal Arteriosclerosis, Thrombosis, and Vascular Biology. Dr. Taubman has served as the Dean of the School of Medicine of Dentistry since March 2010, and in January 2015 was appointed Senior Vice President for Health Sciences and CEO of the University of Rochester Medical Center. A member of the AAMC's Council of Deans and board chair of the Associated Medical Schools of New York, Dr. Taubman continues to lead advocacy efforts at the state and federal levels. During his tenure as CEO, he has led a comprehensive planning process that is sharply focusing the medical center's research, education, and clinical missions. Dr. Taubman, welcome, and I will turn things over to you.
Thank you so much, Erica. I want to extend my welcome to everybody here. I think I share Erica's feeling that you are what makes this institution move forward. You are what makes the institution great. And what I'm here to do today is to really give you some idea of the road we've traveled over the last 8, 9 years since we started our strategic plan, and where we're going. And so I assume everybody can see this. We tested it before. So I'm going to start by showing you something you would see from most research intense academic medical centers. That what makes us special is that we are teaching the next generation of academic physicians, nurses, dentists, other staff. We are also focused on research, and where we're trying to develop new approaches to making people better, making them live longer, and understanding the fundamentals behind how our bodies work. And given that there really is an interdependency between the clinical missions and the academic missions, that by doing teaching and research, we really can attract the best clinical faculty, particularly specialists, so that we can provide a range of clinical resources, do the clinical trials, etc. And it's those specialists who then are able to grow the clinical programs, attract people to our system through excellence and prestige, help to improve value in the system. And what that does is maximize the margin, which we then invest in the clinical and academic mission. So this is really, again, a cycle that really is true for all major academic institutions. Over the last 8 years, we've really focused in some ways on the growth part, even a little bit more on the value. And part of that was really, what are we trying to do? One is that we want to provide the highest quality care and the state-of-the-art care for virtually any type of disease, so that you never really have to leave the region or Rochester to get that care. At the same time, we would like to be able to provide a high quality care to people for 98% of what doesn't need to come to the University of Rochester, as close to home as possible. So that really drives us. And in that approach, scale is really critical. We need a large number of patients, because by doing this, we can then support those specialty programs. When we do specialized things like pediatric cardiac surgery or specialty cancer protocols, we have to recruit people who will do these procedures. And in order for us to be able to support that, we need a large enough volume. So we need to grow large enough so that we can attract the specialists. We also need to grow large enough so that we can do care management. I'll talk a little bit about this later, but in order to make sure that we are thriving, regardless of the kind of reimbursements we get, we need to be large. You can see on the right what large means for us. The little places with the U of R insignia are our affiliates. That includes Highland Hospital, the 3 hospitals in the southern tier, Noyes, St. James, and Jones, and F.F. Thompson Hospital in Canandaigua. We're also in the process of completing our affiliation with Finger Lakes Health, that runs Geneva General in Geneva, and Penn Yan, Soldiers and Sailors, Penn Yan. We also have relationships with other systems where they're not affiliates. We don't own them, but we have programs, and you can see some of them. One of them, Bassett Health in Cooperstown, really services 200,000 patients. We actually have helped them develop trained nurses locally, We have other programs with them. But what this has done is allow us to grow to a system that's about 600, has about 600,000 patients. But it also has put us given us a responsibility. And that responsibility is really to make sure that the health of the communities we serve are all of the same high quality and high standard. In order to be able to be a system like this, we also need the facilities necessary to support this. More and more, as smaller hospitals struggle, more and more places look to us to take care of their most complex patients. This is particularly true in areas like pediatrics and neurosurgery, but we're seeing more and more of this, which means we need the facilities necessary to support this. And one of the challenges we've had is, unlike almost any other of the top 100 population centers in the country, we're underbedded. Most have a surplus. And so even before COVID, we and Rochester Regional's major hospitals were running at over 100% occupancy. That means there's a challenge for us to take all of these patients from all over the region who want the specialized care. But it also drives us to try to build programs locally in all of our regional affiliates so that they are able to handle the lower acuity patients and don't have to send it to us. So the more programs we can build at Thompson, the more programs we can build in Noyes and Wellsville, the more beds we'll have available at Strong and now Highland to take these referrals. To support this, we had developed an accountable care network about 8 years ago. It's called Accountable Health Partners. And this is an alliance between our roughly 1,700 physicians that are part of the medical faculty group at the University of Rochester and another 800 physicians from throughout the community. And this allows us to work as a single team. It allows us to negotiate contracts together with third-party payers, but it also allows us to create a care management program that provides a single standard of care throughout this huge area. And I like to tease people, you know, when I look at the Southern Tier has 175,000 people in a radius of 100 miles. I grew up, my block in Brooklyn had 175,000 people. So it's a challenge to do this. And what we're doing is through Accountable Health Partners. You can see here, this is sort of gives you an idea of where they're situated. They represent about 225 offices throughout this huge region. We now also have 13 urgent care centers. 8 years ago, we had one urgent care center that saw about 10,000 patients. This year, we're seeing 200,000 patients. And this is something that is good for our patients. They can see people after hours, on weekends, and get urgent care rather than either waiting or using the emergency room. But the other idea of having a network you can see on the right. So these are now the branches of the Wilmot Cancer Institute throughout the region. And that keeps growing. And what this means is twofold. One is that we have places, even when you get 100 miles away in Wellsville, for example, where you can get treated with the cancer protocols, being enrolled in cancer trials, get routine radiation therapy in some of our sites, so that you don't need to come up to Strong Memorial Hospital or the Wilmot Cancer Center here to get your treatment. This is wonderful for the patients. It keeps the patient connected with their local physicians. And again, so it's a twofer. They get the same high quality of treatment close to home with their family, and it allows us to use Wilmot Cancer Center to use treatments that really only can be done safely in Rochester. And this is the kind of model that we are trying to develop in other specialties as well, whether it be in orthopedics, whether it be in neurology. But again, it's that idea that what we want to try to do is provide that standard of care. In order to do this, we've had to do a lot of building. I mentioned the urgent care network, but over the last 8 years as part of this, we built a new imaging building, the Pediatric Neuromedicine and Behavioral Health Center. We've built buildings in Batavia and Geneseo to support our affiliates. We built a new Golisano Children's Hospital, which, by the way, needs 2 more floors. And we added 3 floors to the nursing school. We built a new St. James Hospital in Hornell. Last week, we did the ribbon cutting on the new Highland Hospital, which will allow Highland to switch to all private rooms, which I think for all of the people who went through COVID, which is all of us, we really understand in a better way how critical it is to have private rooms, both in terms of infection, but obviously this allows people to be with their families, stay with their families all the time, provides a higher quality of care. And also a couple of weeks ago, we opened up our ambulatory orthopedics campus, a 350,000 square foot building, which is one of the most comprehensive orthopedics buildings in the country, and also provides motion analysis equipment, which is only available in 3 or 4 places in the country, which will greatly change how we can target individual surgeries. But that's where we've been clinically. Where do we have to go? There are a lot of shifts going on. Right now, we work on what's called a fee-for-service basis, where we get paid for doing procedures. We believe that over time that this is going to shift to what's called capitation, or what's called population management. We actually anticipated in our strategic plan we'd be there. It was one of the reasons, another reasons we needed scale. But what this means is that you get paid per patient. So you get a certain fee based on the number of patients you're serving. We're serving 600,000 patients. It'd be 600,000 times X per month. And that's what you get. And as such, what you then need to be able to do is keep your population as healthy as possible so that you can spend that money to provide services for the people who have the most complex care and need those services. So it's a big shift. And when we make that shift, it means that we need to get a population that we can mostly keep healthy. And that's one of the reasons why it's important to get the scale so that we and focus that. We're also seeing real changes in lifestyle among our workforce. People not wanting to work the same kind of hours that they did in the past. People viewing their leisure in a different way. And we need to adjust to that. And in fact, one of the major changes in lifestyle is that for work that is not necessarily patient facing, it can be done at home. You know, when COVID hit, we moved our 600 billers off-site and sent them home to do all the billing at home. Interestingly enough, we had the most efficient billing in our history. And while that sounds good, there are concerns that will that last? If people do not feel a tie to the institution and do it all at home, can we retain them? But, you know, we're seeing this with IT, with legal, where actually people can stay in Rochester, work for a company in San Francisco that can pay them a lot more. And so this is a real challenge. Facilities matter. Being in a private room matters to patients more and more. And patients also want one-stop shopping. That's one of the critical issues about our orthopedics building, which will have physical therapy, which has all of the imaging, which can see the patients, do the surgery in one place. Patients want that more and more. Technology is driving more from patients from inpatient to outpatient. And that has that's wonderful. A lot of the when I came here in 2003, 80% of the orthopedics procedures were inpatient. Now it's 18%. And that's great. Patients can have things that used to take a week in the hospital and go home the same day. But it means that we have to change our facilities to address the needs of outpatient more than inpatient. But for doing the same procedure with the same staff, we get lower reimbursement. So that's a challenge. There is a demand for greater equity and access. I think that one of the things that COVID really shined a light on was the issue of healthcare disparities. And that's something that needs to be addressed and needs to be fixed. And I think we as an institution have a particular responsibility in this community to make sure that's fixed. All of this has to be done in the setting of spiraling costs due to inflation and workforce shortages, so that our expenses in the last 3 years for workforce has gone up almost $400 million. And so these are the challenges that face us. How do we handle this? Well, as I mentioned earlier, we really focused on scale, growing a network that would be large enough to provide for to attract specialists and to survive in a capitated population management approach. But now we got to work on value. And the good news is that the higher the quality, the lower the cost. And that's always been true. So I think what you're going to see is really us pivoting to doing everything we can to improve the value and the quality, improve the efficiency of our ambulatory services, which are now the majority of our services, develop care management strategies for complex patients. 90% of our expenses are incurred taking care of the 10 to 12% of the most complex patients. What can we do to treat them at home? What can we do to prevent those patients from coming in and out of the hospital, but work with them better? One of the things that the COVID highlighted was the issues of nursing homes. Right now, there are about 1,000 beds, nursing home bed shortages in the Monroe County. It was actually 1,500 because of a lack of staff. And also a lack of the desire, given what happened with COVID and the issues with the nursing homes. People don't want to go. And people don't necessarily want to work there. We're trying to address that in many ways, but one of them is to try to restructure post-acute care so we aren't as reliant on this. Take advantage of digital access. More home monitoring, more use of digital technology. We want to continue to grow our cancer program. When I started here, we represented about 6.5% of the cancer market in upstate, and Roswell was about 8%. Now we're at 13.5%, and Roswell's at about 6.5%. So it has changed, and it keeps growing as the ability to do very specialized cancer trials occur, and as it becomes a little bit too complicated for many other centers. As you know, we're building a new hospital, an ED. Our ED was designed for 50,000 people. When Genesee Hospital closed, it immediately became obsolete. We're now seeing 130,000 people. But more importantly, we want an ED that has all private rooms, that has different modules that take care of patients with different needs, whether they be detoxification, whether they're waiting for beds, etc. And we want to expand our hospital so that we also, like Highland, are completely private. But right now, given that we're running at about 115 to 120% of our occupancy, will also allow us to expand to be able to take in all of those referrals that only can use what we do. Golisano is now at about 110% occupancy, and children's services, the vast majority of children's care in New York State is Medicaid and is a money loser. For us, it's a mission, but it means that a lot of small hospitals are jettisoning their pediatric services, and they're looking at us to take care of them. And that's even true in Buffalo and Syracuse. So we need to expand. And again, we need to address healthcare disparities as part of this. But as I mentioned, we're not just a clinical entity, we're also a research institution. And our strategy there, we want to maintain the university as a major center for fundamental basic research. We want to grow our stature as a site for clinical trials in many areas, which allow new technologies to get quicker translated from bench to bedside. This is a place where if you come, we want you to believe we can provide you with treatment you can't get anywhere else. We want to serve as a model for cross-disciplinary team science. We're unusual. We're right on the campus with the university. I've been at 5 medical centers in my life, the only one that's on the campus with the university. We need to take advantage of that to maximize our ability to team science. And of course, it's critical for this university that it remain a major player in the AAU as a research-intensive institution. And so it's important that we continue to grow the research. What are our challenges? We need to maintain a vibrant research community. We need to make sure that we keep recruiting young people who are coming right out of their research programs with new knowledge and new technology. The cost of science is expensive. Right now, for the top 40 research academic research centers, we spend about 60 cents on each dollar that we get from research. So even though when we get money from the NIH, we get what's called indirect costs to help support the research enterprise, they're not enough. We're spending 60 cents on the dollar in order to invest in research. And it's an investment. It's the most valuable investment. As has been said, if you think research is expensive, try disease. But we are small endowed, disproportional to most of our peers. And therefore, that 60 cents comes largely from clinical dollars. So that puts an additional stress on us to make sure that we can support the research. What we've tried to do is to focus on what we call programs of excellence. In the first 8 years of this, that focus was on rather than do research in a department or a center, multi-departmental, multidisciplinary centers, some of them crossing over to the River campus. And the big focus was on cancer, neurosciences, musculoskeletal disease, RNA biology, and immunobiology, all of which really involve many departments. But you can see here that these were not the only areas that we supported, but going forward, I highlight some of the red ones. As we developed our new strategic plan, our focus is also going to expand on health equity research, on aging research, on human health and the environment, and on vision restoration. We are a large research program. We get $250 million a year of funding, about 60% from the NIH. As you can see, we have a lot of grants, about 2,700 grants. A lot of those are clinical trials, but you see we have 840 grants from the NIH. Importantly, we have about 40% of our faculty who are listed as investigators or co-investigators on grants. So even though the faculty that is sort of the core faculty that is largely focused on research is about half of that, many of our clinicians do significant amount of research. The research enterprise is a large enterprise. It employs 3,000 people totally. So if you looked at research as just as a business, it's a business that employs 3,000 people and brings in $250 million a year. It's actually one of the largest businesses in Rochester. And the return on investment is enormous. It brings in roughly $1 billion a year into New York State, and about 80% of that into Rochester. In order to do this, that 60 cents on the dollar means we supply about 160 million. About 40 of that comes from endowment and gifts. The rest comes from the clinical enterprise. What we've been trying, one of the challenges for us has been that when we started fiscal year 14, you could see that we had 164 of our core people who are mostly doing research, 164 professors, 129 associate professors, and only 84 assistant professors. This was worrisome. It's supposed to be the opposite. And so we have really focused on trying to recruit still key top people, but at the same time, try to enhance the recruitment of outstanding young professors, young researchers. And you can see that has changed significantly, and that we now have we're now the assistant professors up to 133. And what's interesting is, while you might think that while we're recruiting these people, it takes time for them to get funding, nevertheless, if you look at the bottom, what you see is each year our faculty is actually getting more funding per faculty. So we're recruiting a vibrant group of people who are very rapidly getting funding, bringing new technology to us, and keeping our research enterprise vibrant. But we're also looking for other types of support. Using our technology transfer better to use our intellectual property. We have a program along with Roswell Park and the University of Buffalo to work together to fund programs to get outside support from venture firms and other firms to develop some of our intellectual property that is closer to being used for going to patients. And one of the things we've been able to do is to take some, because we have grown our enterprise, we've been able to take some of our reserve money and put it into the endowment to go to support research. And that's been critical in our growth of our cancer program, particularly in our neuroscience program. So that's what, that sort of gives you I hope a snapshot of what our research program looks like. Again, one of the things that we are really trying to do is to grow our clinical trials and take advantage of our network. We are also an educational institution, and I think it's important. This slide sort of gives you the breadth of this. We're a relatively small undergraduate medical school. We have about 100 medical students a year. We accept about 105. And of those, we also have about 40 MD PhD students. We are in the 90th percentile in the percentage of our students who graduate with MD PhDs, roughly 10%. But we actually have a very large graduate education program, which has about 370 PhD students a year, which would include about 40 of our MD PhDs, but also has over 150 students getting masters. And one of the things to notice on the bottom right is that over the last really 8 years or so, we've tripled the number of people applying to our graduate program for PhDs. And that's partly because of the growing prestige of our faculty. One of which was Dr. Augustine, who we're sorry to see her leave, but certainly was part of the growth of the prestige of our institution. And in the same way, this gives you some idea of our medical school, gets between 500, 5,500 and 6,000 applicants for this 105 slots. We accept about 250. We tend to lose to the top 10 ranked schools. But overall, that gives us about a little bit over a 5% acceptance rate, making us one of the most selective in the country. To put it in further perspective, 11% of everybody who applies to medical school from the United States applies to the University of Rochester. Our largest actual educational program is our graduate medical education program. We now have 95 programs, which of residency and fellowships, with about 900 residents and fellows. Our School of Nursing has doubled in size over the last 6 years. Now graduates about 800 students a year. In fact, 2 years ago, it was 900 students. But we're seeing a decrease in people going into nursing, plus a number of they have many programs at various tiers. Many of the students who were going for higher degrees deferred because of the shortage in their hospital and decided to wait a couple of years to get the degree. We do not have an undergraduate dental school. We have dental residents and fellows, and you can see that's pretty large. And our faculty are still learners. There's always continuing medical education, and our faculty is about 2,000. But I hope this gives you some sense of the size of the educational programs. We've had a lot of growth. As I mentioned, they've had a huge growth in the enrollment in the School of Nursing, a big growth in our residency program, huge growth in our PhD program. We've also seen substantial increases in diversity of our students, particularly our residents and our graduate students. And this is something that we have been very proactive about in the last 3 to 4 years and will continue to be. We have been acknowledged as an exemplar in interprofessional education. Our nursing school is across the street from our medical school, and we do a lot of joint simulation and really have led the way into how we develop an interprofessional program that really focuses on team learning, because I think more and more we're going to be treating patients as team. When we talk about that care management, it's teams, and we need to train people from the beginning to be part of teams. We were one of 8 residency programs chosen throughout the country out of 55 applicants, including Hopkins, who didn't get it, for the ACGME program in Pursuing Excellence, which is to try to transform our residency program, again, so that the residents are more involved in team education. And over the last 8 years, we've increased our endowed professorships from 45 to 115, which is really critical to maintain and support our outstanding faculty. We've also created a lot of new programs, a new Center for Health Humanities and Bioethics 2 years ago, which allowed us to recruit Lainey Ross, one of the real national stars in bioethics, and will be very important working with our programs to enhance diversity and improve the culture in the institution. We developed a new Department of Neurosciences, an Aging Institute, a new Institute in Translational Immunology and Infection, a new Institute for Human Health and Environment. We created our Center for Experiential Learning, which is our simulation center. And we really restructured our Department of Physical Medicine and Rehabilitation into what we think is one of the leading departments in the country. And of course, we've turned over most of our chairs, which has really fostered the growth in our faculty, enhanced the balance of gender. Like to say right now of our clinical chairs, we have 8 women and 10 men. That's my goal was 50-50. We're getting close, and that keeps improving. But we have educational challenges. There's fierce competition for the top students, particularly among diverse students and faculty. We are expecting Supreme Court rulings which will potentially affect our ability to target underrepresented populations. There are a growing number of free or discounted tuition schools. And as an institution with a very low endowment, that's something that would be very, very difficult for us to do. If we wanted to make our school tuition free, we'd need an additional endowment totally directed in scholarships of about $500 million. And put in perspective, right now, the endowment for the medical center as a whole is about $1 billion, most of which is targeted towards research and supports the research enterprise. So we need new facilities and technology. Our research buildings were new when I came, they're not so new now. And technology has changed. We need to enhance our workforce. And so we need to we need to develop the next generation of academic physicians, dentists, and nurses. We have a dual purpose here. We want to create the workforce, not just for us, but for the entire community. But we also want to do what we've always done, is create the leaders of academia. And that's our educational imperatives. What do we need to do? We're going to need to focus on diversity and value-added education, which means increase faculty, student, and training diversity. We need to build cross-campus partnerships. We want to open up a small undergraduate dental dual degree program where they'll get a dental degree and a PhD to help us maintain ourselves as one of the top 5 research-oriented dental programs. We want to enhance people coming into our School of Nursing, again, to create academic nurses, but also to enhance the workforce. We want to attract select international students, and we want to partnerships that expose students and training and faculty to more technology. And finally, we have a real focus on improving in our culture and health equity, and what I call it, we want to be the Wegmans of academic medical centers. That means we want to be the place everyone wants to come to study, to work, and to teach. And to do this, we really are going to be focusing on 2 major issues. A couple of years ago, we initiated what we think is a very aggressive, comprehensive equity and anti-racism action plan. In doing so, we've developed an Office of Equity and Inclusion, a very robust office. We've set expectations, supportive tools for intentional recruitment and retention, enhance the training opportunities to grow, particularly among our staff, so that people think of this as a career, not a job, and to develop faculty development. We also want to develop a system-wide wellness program, and are in the process doing a search for a wellness officer. And we want to make Rochester a leader in addressing healthcare disparities. We've started an Office of Health Equity Research. I recruited Edith Williams recently to run that. We have a Health Equity Steering Committee. We need to get accurate demographic and social determinants, which we can now do and put into EPIC, so we really understand the needs. And we just initiated a new board committee of the Medical Center Board to focus on health disparities. We've created a Health Equity Steering Committee, and you can see that involves a committee, a group that focuses on research, a group that is the Equity Technology Task Force, is how do we make sure that we're using the hospital records and technology to get the data. A provider task force, how do we provide healthcare to the community, and an education task force. And this is all working with our community partners, broad community partners, so that we understand from them what the needs are and we can respond to it. And with that, I think I had a slide on the finances, but I think I'm going to stop there and allow for questions. The bottom line for the finances are there are challenges related to lack of workforce, issues of not being able to get patients to nursing homes, cost of workforce, but the bottom line is one way or another, we need to have the finances to be able to support all the things that you've heard. So I'll stop there and go for questions.
Dr. Taubman, thank you. You know, your leadership has been phenomenal. You have had such impact. And I think the information that you just shared with us about, you know, where we've been, the ways we've grown, and where the medical center is going provides a great context for the discussion that we hope to have. So I will reiterate, please add your questions to the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen. We have our first question that leads off, focused on your accomplishments. Our first question from the guest today: what are your 2 or 3 greatest points of pride that you can share from your tenure?
That's a tough one. I would say, you know, I think one of the things that I made a major focus of my tenure was developing endowed professorships. You know, we really started out with about 45. We're actually now up to over 115 that have completed, and about another 15 or 20 on the way. And I think that's just so critically important to be able to recruit and retain faculty. And ultimately, the quality of our program really relies on the quality of the faculty. So I'd say that's one thing. I'd say the other thing that I think is critical, and we didn't get into it much, but I think it's very important, is creating an integrated financial model, which is one of the reasons I wanted to take the role of the dean and the CEO together. We are an integrated system. There are not many anymore. There are only about 5 or 6 in which the university owns everything. In most systems, the hospital system is separate, and the academic enterprise is negotiated. And I felt it very important, particularly with our low endowment, that the investment in research that we take, that when we present, the investment in research is front and center. It's not a negotiation. It's something that we do because our research and our education is what makes us tick. And so now what we present is not a hospital budget and a medical school budget, a school of nursing budget and dentistry. It's a single budget in which, at the end of the day, we are it's the leadership of the medical center is working coordinately to make sure that all our missions are taken care of. And, you know, I think that's, you know, particularly in crisis times when there might not be a clinical margin to rely on, the concept that the research is a line item investment that is part of us, I think was very critical. And I think the last thing is recruiting unbelievable chairs, because ultimately it's not what I do, it's what the chairs do. And, you know, I've watched with great pride the kind of turnaround that is, and it's not just chairs, it's center directors as well. You know, Jonathan Friedberg running the Cancer Institute and spearheading our attempt to regain NCI designation. Critical. But it is getting great chairs in our departments who can move things forward and who work well with each other.
Those accomplishments really speak to the idea of investment in faculty, investment through professorships, investment through having strong leaders in the form of chairs, and then investment, as you said, in the research enterprise by providing some security around that. The next question relates to retention. What are the clear solutions to counteract universities in expensive cities from taking our talented researchers and physicians by attracting them with higher pay? How do we combat that?
Well, I think I'll say two things. The good news is it hasn't happened much. So when we look at, so just to put things in perspective, the national average for faculty loss per year is about 8.5%. We have averaged during this time about 4.5%. It's funny that half the people won't go to Rochester because they don't think they can't imagine what Rochester is like. I mean, I lived through this. People thought when I was leaving New York, I would last for six months. I've lasted for 21 years and I love it. But once people get here, they love it. And we've actually done better than most in retaining people. Obviously, endowed professorships are critical. My goal, and we're not there yet, was to have an endowed professorship for every senior, meaning associate professor and higher, because that's one of the things that we can retain them. Our cost of living is a lot less. I mean, I can tell you, having lived in New York, that while Mount Sinai might pay $10,000 or $15,000 more, a housing is 5 times that price. So, I think we have to provide people opportunities in which more than anything else, they can grow. I left the Brigham to go to Mount Sinai. Even though the Brigham had the prestige of Harvard, what I was offered to run my research program was 1/5 of what I offered at Mount Sinai. I wouldn't be here if I'd stayed there. Right? So what you have to do is you have to offer your faculty great packages, provide them with the opportunity to grow. So when the package ends, if they're succeeding, you got to let them succeed. I think if we do that, on the faculty side, we're okay. Bigger challenge in some ways on the staff side, where, particularly if it's not patient facing, where you can stay in Rochester, but you can get hired to work on Zoom by a company that can pay, or an institution that can pay double the price. That's more of a challenge, less so with our faculty.
I'd like to shift a little bit for the next question. Again, you've talked about that key priority to invest in faculty and staff and students. And we are just emerging from this COVID pandemic. Are you concerned about future pandemics? And in all that we've learned in these last few years, are we as an organization better positioned to respond as a system, as a community, as a nation?
Do I think there'll be another pandemic? The last pandemic was 100 years ago. So you in the flu pandemic, so you could argue these things don't happen often, but I'm going to be more sanguine about it, that in the last 20 years, we've had 3 major new coronaviruses, 2 of which, MERS and SARS, did not become pandemic because they were too lethal to become pandemic. COVID-19, I think, is rapidly mutating to a cold. And we know that the 50% of the colds are coronaviruses. We actually may have seen the natural history of a cold and how it started. But it worries me that if you've had 3 major coronaviruses in the last 20 years, there may be more coming. So I do think it's certainly possible. I think we as an institution are better prepared. We are stockpiling PPE, which was a real problem. We've got more ventilators, but more importantly, what we learned as a system was critical. So in the very beginning, almost everybody who had COVID who was sick had to come to you strong, because our community, the rest of our affiliates couldn't handle it. When we got Delta, the reverse was true. We were actually able to use our affiliates that now had the skills to actually help decompress strong. So I think as a network, we are much, much better equipped. We also built a wonderful relationship with the community, with our community leaders, with Adam Bello, with the other system. We were, for the first 4 months, we had a meeting every day by Zoom on what to do as a county. So we really created, and in fact, Rochester did better than most. So I believe we are far better equipped than we were locally to take care of it. Nationally, the answer is it all depends on who's in the leadership. I think that our failure in this pandemic was our failure to have a national program that really took hold of it at the very beginning when we had the opportunity, and was unable to push one of the greatest triumphs in the history of science, a vaccine in 9 months. What I do know, and I think it's important, is that the technique of, because of RNA biology, we now have the ability to make vaccines very quickly. And the delivery system, which was the whole issue that Pfizer and Moderna and the others developed, that delivery system was proven to be very safe. So now, going forward, we no longer have to prove the delivery system. All we have to do is alter the RNA sequence to deliver it. So we are actually in a much better position to create vaccines if we convince people that it's going to save their lives. And, to me, that was a tragedy that we weren't able to do that to the extent we might.
It sounds like we've learned. We've strengthened our relationships with our partners through this process. And I'll go back to what you spoke about, being able to meet all of the needs of the people of the region through our systems. And it sounds like we've learned ways to do that. I really want to thank you for your time today. Thank all of you for attending and joining us this afternoon. And hopefully you found this interesting, insightful. As the university's biggest ambassadors, we strive to deliver relevant and impactful content that helps you have pride in the institution. I know I do, hearing about all of the advances today. There is a brief survey that will come up at the end of the event, and we encourage you to share your feedback, and it helps inform the future content and deliver more meaningful content. This was a part of a series that takes place each year. Stay tuned for future events and series that will pick up in the fall. And it's been a pleasure hosting today's session, and we hope to see you at the next forum. Thank you, and thank you again, Dr. Taubman.
Thank you.